Good morning, everybody. It's Julie and Michelle. Tara is dragging a little this morning, but she should be here. She had a late night, which we're
Yeah.
excited to hear about. She said she got in at 4 a.m., so I can't
Oh
wait to
my
find out.
God.
And Joe had to go to the dentist this morning.
Yeah, she got the time wrong. She thought it was at 11:15, but then she texted us. She was like, "Guys, I'm so sorry. It was at 10:15."
So
So,
she probably will not be joining us from the dentist chair, but we're here, and hopefully
yeah.
Tara is going to join. Really good to see everybody this morning. Michelle,
Mhm.
you and I are actually going to do a show on this tomorrow.
Yeah,
Um,
we haven't
yeah,
decided what time though.
yeah, I think like maybe 7 p.m. I think is
I
what we
think
said,
7's
tomorrow
good.
night on
Yeah.
Substack. If people want to join us, Michelle and I are going to do a little experiment tomorrow, which is that we're thinking about doing a show
Mhm.
that is just basically for women who are millennials or Gen Zers. I'm Gen Z. Michelle's a millennial.
Mhm.
But it's really for anybody, boomers, anybody else, just about what it's like um, dealing with shit every day as women. It's not really political, although obviously, you know,
And
pol-
to be a woman is
to be a
innately
woman is
political.
political.
Right.
But we're gonna be. It's just more to talk about girl stuff and
Yeah.
women stuff. And if you're a man watching and you want to join, please do because we can't do this on our own. We need the guys to join us as well. So we're gonna do that. I think that's a contractor that showed up at my house, and that's my dog barking. So I'm sorry about that. But also, we are. I know we're going to talk about this tomorrow night, Michelle. But can we just start by talking about this Bezos wedding for 5 seconds before we get to anything else? Because it's
I
so annoying.
I
I'm gonna mute my thing here. And well, I think my dog has stopped. No, I'm gonna mute until it
okay.
stops. So go ahead.
Um, well, it's funny because like I knew it was happening. I remember they announced however many months ago that they were going to have this wedding and it was going to be millions and millions of dollars, like $100 million or something crazy. And this there it is a level of wealth in which none of us will ever know. Um, and honestly, I'm kind of fine with that because these people seem terrible. And I don't know that any
Terrible.
amount of money will ever make them happy. Because as you look around them, they're constantly filling their lives with things. Um, and it just doesn't ever really seem to fill a hole inside of them. And I have to say, one of the biggest disappointments is looking at the guest list.
Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah, because the guest list is really like, if people wanna know why Zohran Mamdani won in New York the other day,
Hmm.
I think there are many reasons. We don't have to dwell on them today, or we could if we want to, but I think part of the reason is this, right? It's this whole notion that there's like a uniparty out there, as I said to you yesterday, and it's people who pretend that they kind of stand for something, but then at the end of the day, all like think about who was there. You had Jared and Ivanka.
Yeah.
You had Huma Abedin, who the last time I checked, or I should say when I knew Huma, we both worked in the Senate, she was like carrying Hillary Clinton's binder. Now she suddenly marries Alex Soros.
Alex Soros, right?
She's worth like billions of dollars, which, through marriage, which God bless. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
But
it's definitely a glow up from her last.
yeah, from her last husband. But
Yeah.
now all of a sudden she's showing up and she's showing up like at these billionaire weddings, and it's Bill Gates who's doing great work in Africa and was, trying to cure
Yeah.
diseases. But yet, like an Oprah, who, by the way, can we just talk about Oprah for a second? Because I have to get this off my chest. And I'm sorry if people here love Oprah, and I'm sorry if people here grew up watching Oprah.
Yeah. I
We
mean,
all,
I did. Yeah.
we all did. But like Oprah has foisted so many awful people in us, from Dr. Oz to Dr. Phil.
You ain't
And
wrong.
and like now Oprah's showing up um at these weddings. She does, like, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's wedding. She doesn't even know these people as far as I can tell. The Kardashians. And then
I
like,
think that's kind of what happens with
yeah,
famous people like this. They invite a bunch of people to the wedding. It becomes like a PR event. It's like an
yeah,
award show or something.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's like they don't even know each other. Like that's what's
Right.
so weird. So
Can
I don't know about
imagine.
your wedding, Michelle. You had a big wedding. I had a very
I
small wedding.
did.
My
Yeah.
wedding purposely, like when I say purposely, we just invited family.
Hmm.
And when I say friends, I mean like if I didn't know you for at least 30 years, and we weren't really close friends for 30 years, like you weren't coming to my wedding. So our wedding, I think total was like maybe 30 people. And that's how I want. And I don't begrudge people who are, who have big weddings. That's great. But when you start inviting people you don't even know, because it's like a PR event,
Right.
like I got to wonder what that's all about.
Right. Or you're just trying to peacock, like, oh, I can get this person in
Yeah.
my thing.
And they shut down Venice.
96 private jets flew in there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you shut down Venice, which in the middle of tourist season,
Right.
effectively making it unaffordable for anybody else to go there.
Yeah.
And why? Like, why? Like, do you think Venice belongs to you? Like, you're just renting out an entire city, you and your billionaire
the sinking city. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
a city that's got real problems and real challenges because of the horrible glut of tourism. And I just don't get it. It's this whole Kardashianization of everything. And I'm not gonna get started. We could talk about Lauren Sanchez tomorrow because I don't even want to get started on that situation. But like the whole thing. And meanwhile, let me just say this: his first wife, Mackenzie Scott, in the meantime, while they're spending $55 million on a 3-day extravaganza, is giving away all of her wealth to like the Boys and Girls Club and to all of these wonderful charities. And truly, she's not doing it. I don't even know if people are aware of who she's giving money to, because the way she does it is she doesn't announce it. She literally,
because she's not trying to get credit. I mean, imagine that. And
you can't, I know this because I run a nonprofit. You cannot reach out to her to ask her for money. One day she shows up and she says, I'm completely making this up, so don't take me at my word for exactly this particular. She'll be like, Boys and Girls Club of Wichita, Kansas. I'm going to give you $5 million. And like, that's how she does it, like completely randomly. And to places like that, it is a tremendous amount of money. And, you know, that's the part I think that's so interesting between her and the woman he's now marrying, who is on the cover of Vogue. Why is she on the cover of Vogue, Anna Wintour? Like what other than marrying a really rich man, why is she on the cover of Vogue? Is she somebody notable? Is she somebody famous?
Has she done anything to contribute to the, and I see you, Tara, you're good. Okay. I'm going to bring Tara in. Okay. Cause you know, it's funny because you're up and down like this on like the preview screen. All I could see was this. And I was like, oh, she must be having camera problems, but you're not. Hello. And you're on mute also. You're on mute.
Still on mute.
I wonder if I can unmute.
Okay, I'm on my phone today, so I apologize.
We're saying you had a late night.
Can you hear me?
You're dragging.
Yeah, we can.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You hear my voice? It's because I was singing karaoke and doing shots like a crazy person, like a typical Jersey girl on a Friday night. And we didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. So yeah. But I'm here for a little bit, but we have a breakfast with the crew in a little while. So I wanted to hop on and make sure that there was proof of life. And and come hang out with you guys for a little bit.
Lois is asking,
what are you talking about?
Lois is asking, are you down the shore, Tara? And you are.
I am down the shore. And I am in Seaside Park, and which is a place Seaside and Seaside Park I've been coming my entire life since before I could stand. And so this is my happy place domestically. We always come down the week before 4th of July, at least for 1 week of summer. And we try to go down the shore as often as we can, but it's harder now that we live in the DC area. But when I lived in Jersey, it was all the time, of course, because as Julie knows, it is wonderful down the shore, because down the shore, everything's all right.
Everything's all
Bruce
right.
Springsteen.
Well, that's true. I lived in Ocean Grove, which is north of where you are, but I spent about 3 years living in Ocean Grove, New Jersey, literally half a block from the beach, and working for a congressman down there.
Yep.
And so, yes, right next to Asbury Park. People who are not from Jersey can picture it. Asbury Park. Bruce Springsteen, who's not from Asbury Park, but made it very famous.
Nope.
Back then, it was a total mess and a dump. Now Asbury Park is like the hottest place around. But
yeah.
Anyway,
But anyway, so yes, so that's where I was. And if anyone is familiar with Seaside Park, they are familiar with Bum Rogers. And it's like one of the best dive bars ever. And they always have live bands. And so our friends whose shore house we're staying at with them, they're amazing. Their kids are amazing. They're all grown. Their kids are like 30 and 27. So we all always go out together and have a blast. And yeah, it was a late night. So, but I'm outside. I'm getting some saltwater air. The beach is
Nice.
literally right there. And after I have a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese on a hard roll, I will be on the beach today.
Very nice. Excellent.
What were you guys talking about when I came
We're
in?
talking about Lauren Sanchez. We're talking about what the hell merits Lauren
Ugh.
Sanchez a Vogue cover. Like, why is Lauren Sanchez on the cover of Vogue other than she married a really rich guy? Like,
What's that
Right.
song that the Luann from Real Housewives, she had that single, she was like,
Money
money
can't
can't
buy
buy
class."
you class. That's all I
Oh
can
my
think of
God.
every
Yes.
time I saw a picture of her. And Mallory's friend actually posted something about, like, because she was waving and she had these, like, I don't know, these like crusty looking hands and like these claw looking nails. And she was like, "You're a billionaire. Get a tube of Gold Bond moisturizer. It costs $5.99, sister." Like, this is what I'm saying. She looks like a mess to me, like, just because maybe she's just not a good person, and that's all I keep thinking about. But
Well,
I think
I
I think
mean,
if she was a nice person, I don't know that I would say any of these things, because it's not nice to pick on people. But
yeah, she's
she
a mean
deserves to
girl,
be
I
picked
thought.
on.
I
She
thought she was
was?
kind of she's a mean girl, I thought.
Yeah.
And like she has a very checkered past with like, wasn't she like a sports reporter, and didn't she like do some kind of journalism or something? And then like there was I don't there was a lot of drama with
I
her
don't know her
before she
life. I
landed.
don't know her
Before
life.
she dated a lot of dudes before she landed Bezos.
before she landed Bezos, she landed Whitesell, whose name I can't remember right now, who is literally, I think, the chairman of Endeavor or something. So she married really well in the Hollywood agent world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's
Oh,
kind of like going from one to the other. And God bless. I mean, look, I don't begrudge
Yeah,
her,
whatever.
whatevs, but what I have to, I think it's this disgusting display of wealth where you're really shutting down a major tourist destination at the height of the season
Right.
for you.
I
and your
thought it was
family.
Venice, California, and then I realized it was Venice, Italy.
yeah.
And
Very different.
I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's Venice, Italy. I'm like, okay. Listen, I got
And-
married in Italy. It's not, I mean, it can be done without it being obnoxious the way theirs is. We didn't shut down anything. And we got married in a castle in the Sicilian mountains. And we didn't shut down anything. You don't have to be that obnoxious with it.
that's what it is. You don't have to be that obnoxious. I get that you want to be married in Venice because it's so unique and it's so beautiful. I agree. I love
Sure.
it. It's a big disagreement at my house because my husband thinks it smells like a sewer. I think it's one of the most beautiful places on earth.
We have yet to be. We've been all over Italy. And we've never been to Venice. And it's
Gotta go.
partially for me, it's because I feel like it's gotten so touristy that I'm like, I'm like, but we need to go.
The last time I went in, I want to say March, and it was late March, and it was not touristy at
Right.
all.
I was gonna say that's a good time because there's nobody there probably.
It's a little cold, but like I think if you go in the fall, I think if you go in September, October, it's probably the best time to go, and it's not that touristy.
And that's usually when we go. So,
the
but
point-
yeah, I'd like to experience.
Well,
Marcel wants to experience it. I've just
Well-
never made it a priority. And one of these trips to Italy, we have to. We have to do like Como and Venice and up there.
Well,
Yeah,
before we move on, I just do want to just show this old picture of Jeff Bezos from decades ago. Because this is who this man really is. And with a fair amount of money for just inventing a website that sells other people's things, he has become another person. So I just always
So
like
is
to
she
remind
apparently.
people- well, I mean, yeah.
I'm just saying.
So anyways, that's who that is. And
I don't know. The whole thing doesn't sit well with me. And again, going back to like Oprah and the Kardashians, like what?
oops, no.
Did you guys see some of the Instagram memes where they're like fascism but fashionable, or like fashion and fascism or something like that, making fun of them like all there like.
Well, I think that's
you
at
just
the heart
wonderful?
of this. That's at the heart of this. Yes, it is the wealth and everything, but this is a man who bought a newspaper however many years ago, right? And I think that we all felt at the time like, well, he was like, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm just going to own the newspaper, and like, you guys do what you got. And you're like, okay, great.
And he did.
Whatever. And
Yeah.
he
And he
did
did.
for many, many years. And
Yeah.
then came last year, and he was like, you know, the editorial board was all ready to endorse Kamala Harris, and he stepped in and said no.
Yep.
And that
With the paper
that was
whose masthead says democracy dies in darkness.
right.
Beyond.
Democracy dies at the Washington Post with Jeff
Yep.
Bezos at the helm. You know,
But it's beyond that. Because
Yeah.
now what he's doing is he's allowing people to annotate their
I saw
own
that.
op-eds. Did you see that? So that if,
I
for
saw that.
example, the Washington Post writes something bad about Donald Trump, the White House gets to annotate that column.
Right.
Like
That is unheard of, by the way, just for people who
Yeah.
don't realize how extraordinary that is. Like, that is not normal.
No.
Not normal at all.
Yeah.
So he's not only actively, like, he was hands off at the Washington
Yeah,
Post, and the
for a
Washington
long, long
Post was
time.
thriving. And the Washington Post has, you know, is one of the papers of record in the country. It's like the Post and the New York Times.
Mhm.
And you know, we're talking Pentagon Papers and all these things. Bill
Mhm.
Bradley, like the history of the
Watergate.
Washington Post, right? It's
Watergate,
just
yeah.
Woodward and Bernstein, and they had
Yeah.
an amazing roster of journalists and opinion writers, some of the best in the
Yep.
business, particularly for
Yep.
politics. And there's been a mass exodus in protest. People who've
I
been
was
there
one of
for
those people
decades.
who
Me too. I
turned
canceled my
off.
subscription right away.
Yeah.
I've had it for like 10 years. I was like, nope, not
Yep.
doing this anymore.
Yep. I said,
And-
I'm sorry, can't do it.
And the part that I can't grasp and I can't get around is what is like, why are we supporting this shit? And not just us, but why is Oprah there?
Well,
Why? I mean, I know why, but I mean,
I'd like to speak to this. I won't get into the details, but in my own life, I have witnessed this. And it's like always like I kind of knew, but I didn't really know. When I saw it in my own life, having known someone I was very close to who was in a lot of wealth and influence, right? I saw this person make some decisions, and I saw this person's values start to sort of melt away.
Yeah.
And the proximity and performative nature of having values or caring about things sort of go away when you reach that level of wealth and influence. Because then it just becomes just like, oh, it's like my hobby to care about stuff. Because when all those people get together, it doesn't matter anymore.
Mhm.
And it really, truly doesn't. Because, you know, I would hear, oh, this person, you know, worked for Hillary, and like this person is, you know, one of Trump's biggest donors, and it doesn't matter because we're all friends and we can just be friends at the end of the day. And I'm like, what? So,
Yeah.
you know, when you are someone who, you know, says they care about women's rights or, you know, human rights or not being a fascist country and like, let's not elect Nazis, you know, and then you go to celebrate Donald Trump's inauguration, like I don't, you know what I'm saying? And like,
yeah,
and
it's hard to
where
swear.
I gotta
right,
say,
there are a lot of Democrats at Donald Trump's inaugural ball, guys. Like it's just, and they're Democrats with a lot of money and a lot of influence, and at a certain level, it just doesn't matter anymore. It's like Succession. If you guys watch
Yes.
the show, I know you
Yes.
guys do.
yeah,
It's the siblings, right? It's like Siobhan was the Democrat who worked in Democratic politics, and she was a consultant, and you know, she I think genuinely does care. But at the end of the day, what comes first is influence, status in the world, power, proximity to power. I mean, it's just that's just how it is. It's them, and then there's the rest of us. And we don't have the luxury of not caring.
Right.
We're not going to, these people, no matter what, will be okay because they can
Yeah.
build $100 million bunkers. And if they don't have one, they'll go to their friend's bunker. Like they take care of each other.
Yep. That's very
I think-
true.
I
And
guess
I
that's-
just want to be clear that we are not envious of their wealth, because some people might be like, you're just being haters. It has nothing to do with that. As long as you obtained
No.
it legally and ethically,
Yeah, I don't care.
God bless,
whatever.
good for you. Okay. But it's what happens to their values when they attain that level of wealth. And we did. I'm familiar with the details of what Michelle's talking about. And just because we're not going to talk about names, but
No, it's,
I
you know,
watched that
because
whole thing, and it's just like it hurts your heart because
yes,
you're
it broke
like
my heart. It
it
broke
it was
my
hard. It was really
heart.
hard. And it was like, wait a minute. If either you believe that what's happening is serious and like a danger to society and you want to make a difference and you're in a position to make a difference, or you don't. You don't
Yeah,
just go, this is not like a normal election. This isn't
right.
this isn't Bush versus Kerry.
This is not Mitt
You know what I
Romney.
mean?
Like, you know
It's
what
not
I mean?
Obama versus McCain,
Right.
where you're just like, okay, well, we go back to having our fighting our policy differences, and we can all still go to the Capitol Hill Club or the Cosmos Club or whatever, and have dinners together and just argue over healthcare
Mm-hmm.
policy. Those days are over. We're literally fighting for the existence of our entire democracy. It's not okay to just be like, well, we still honor the office of the presidency, so we're going to go and
Well, right. And
celebrate the guy who's
that's
going to destroy our democracy. Like,
and
there's a
that's always
difference.
the excuses. Well, it's, he's president now. And I'm like, yeah. And what happened last time is like going to be a picnic compared to what
Look what
happens
happened
this time.
yesterday. Look what
Hmm.
happened
I know.
yesterday.
Somebody in the comments was asking, can we talk about what happened yesterday?
Yeah.
And also the
And
UVA
UVA.
president resigning. So a couple people have asked about that
Why don't
too.
we talk about
Yes,
Sarah,
given that I have a direct connection to that whole
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
yeah, we could talk about that. Actually, I have a little more time. So we're good. I can stay for a
Well,
little
Right.
let's talk about UVA because that's your
Yeah.
thing.
bit. Yeah. So UVA, and for those who don't know, who are new to watching us, I'm a resident scholar at the University of Virginia Center for Politics. That's Professor Larry Sabato and his crew there. They're amazing. And Larry Sabato is one of the preeminent political scientists in the country. He's been around for decades and is one of the go-to guys when we talk about like prognosticating different elections and trends. And the center does amazing work in that. He has the crystal ball, and also he's a
Mm.
doppelganger for the My Pillow guy, and he's
Oh my God, he
hysterical.
is.
It's
I
it's
never
hysterical,
thought.
and he leans into it. Larry Sabato is a hoot and a half. I adore him, and he has leaned into the My Pillow doppelganger jokes for
Oh my
years,
God,
and
that's
it's
so
glorious.
funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So
I got
anyway,
a clip with him on Twitter this week, which I'll talk about in a second. But go ahead.
oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I'll
And
tell you.
like Paul Bagala, who's another good friend of mine, he's a resident fellow there too. Like, we helped raise money for the center and for Larry for his 70th birthday. Like, it's like I adore the program. The school is beautiful. Anyone who's ever visited UVA, they call it on grounds instead of
Mhm.
on campus. And Thomas Jefferson started it. There's a lot of history there, and it's just a beautiful place. And they have what's called like the board of visitors, and it's kind of like the trustee board or the board of regents, depending on how things are set up. And it is a public university,
Oh, it
and
is? I
so
didn't know that.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, it's a state school. Yeah.
it is.
Cool.
So they're like, the governor gets to appoint people and things like that. And over the years, there's been some Trumpy folks that
Mm.
are on this, and there's been a lot of internal politics there. And now that there's pressure coming down from the DOJ about their DEI programs. And the president was basically forced out because they're going to open up a civil rights investigation into the University of Virginia over their DEI programs that discriminate against white students.
Oh my
It's the
God.
same bullshit like what happened with Harvard.
Mm.
And
And they're not interested in fighting back, obviously.
well, no, because they're a public school.
Right.
It's a public school. And it's going to
God
be, let's
damn it.
remember, like, Charlottesville also is where Unite the Right happened.
I know.
Right? The
That's
Jews will
why
not
I'm
replace
just
us.
like, what?
It is quite jarring because Charlottesville, the school is beloved there, and to see something like this happen with another storied institution of higher learning and this kind of pressure is outrageous. What they're doing is outrageous. Again, they're coming for academia and using
Right.
their public school. They're not Harvard, okay? They don't have an endowment like Harvard. They don't
Right.
have gazillion billionaires who could make up for some of these losses. They can't. They have a charter. There's things they have to abide by.
Right.
So it's another reason why, Abigail Spanberger winning is really
Mm.
important. It's a kind of a more of a local issue in Virginia, but principally the concept of being pressured, higher learning institutions being pressured by political
Right.
agendas. Here's another example, them coming for academia. So yeah.
Right.
And Harmeet
Well-
Dillon, who is a psycho, by the way, lunatic, is the head of the civil rights division at the DOJ. And she shouldn't be the head of a fucking Dunkin' Donuts. Never
she was
mind the civil rights
Robert
division.
yesterday, and he gave her a really long time.
That's right. You said that.
Yeah. So I watched Jake Tapper's show from 6 to 7 last night, which I never do because I'm never around. But
Ugh.
then I was home and I was watching. He didn't have one Democrat on except for Eric Adams, who I don't count as a Democrat.
No, well, he's not anymore anyways, but yeah.
He might be registered as one, but he's not running as one. But
Yeah.
he had Harmeet Dillon on for ages, spouting off about this UVA thing. Interestingly, he did not have anybody to push back on her. He didn't have the former president or anybody from the Board of Visitors. I'll say this about UVA because I've spent a lot of time down there. Had a lot of friends who went there and live in Charlottesville and so on. It is not just a state school. It is one of the marquee states in this country. It is.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Right. It is
Like-
up there with Michigan. It is up there with the
Yeah.
UC Berkeley and UCLA and all these
Yeah.
other.
There's like people who get into West Point who then, there's people who get, I forget the analogy I was going to make. Anyways, it's really, really hard to get in.
Yes,
it's like
it is.
It really is up there with Michigan and UCLA.
Yeah.
Yes, it is one. I didn't want to like toot their own horn thing, but
Well,
like
I know
yes,
you were
UVA
going to,
is.
but I was
I
like,
think
I
they have to
will.
have no
It's like
ties
one
to
of the hardest schools to get into.
Yes,
Like, I would
if you're out of state.
Yeah.
Before yesterday, I would have been thrilled for my son to go there.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
As a matter of fact, I think Maria Cardona's daughter is going to go there. Maria's on our advisory board at Seneca, and last fall Maria came down to do a panel with us at the Center for Politics, and she brought her daughter for a visit. So of course we were working her hard about you should go to UVA. It was between UVA and Duke, and we were like, don't go to Duke, And
Don't go to
Maria
Duke.
went to Duke though. Maria went to Duke, so it's like a friendly joke about that.
I guess.
I did not get into UVA. I applied to UVA when I was in high school. It was one of my top 3 schools that I wanted to go. I actually applied to University of North Carolina. I did apply to Duke. I don't know why. And UVA. And I didn't get into any of them. I got into GW because God had a different plan. And I'm so glad because I don't think I would have been who I am now with the experiences and the opportunities I had going to school in Washington, D.C., as opposed to going to these beautiful storied campuses.
But they're out in the middle of,
They're out in the middle of
You're not
nowhere.
really
And it's like,
connected.
and it was a different experience. And I look back and as devastated as I was at the time, it didn't take long for me to be like, oh no, GW is absolutely where I needed to be.
Yeah.
And so I joke about it that again, like I didn't go to Harvard either, but I got the opportunity to go and teach and kids there and be a mentor to them and to do the same at UVA. And it's like, it's an honor. It really is an honor and a privilege to be a part of institutions like that.
It's amazing.
And to have influence.
But
go ahead.
But just to the larger point of what we're talking about, like as somebody whose son is a year away from high school, and sadly, if you live in New York, you start thinking about college when they're in kindergarten.
Yeah.
People in New York think. You think about schools, and I think about Michigan, which is, as I said,
my husband went to law school there.
Right. Amazing law school. One of my closest friends went to UVA Law School, love these schools. But again, if this is what government is going to do to interfere in academia, schools, and in these board of visitors are going to be ebbing and flowing with whoever the governor of the state is.
Yep.
I mean, Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan now. If a Republican takes over, what's going to happen to University of Michigan?
Well,
right.
Listen, I mean, Gretchen Whitmer makes me a little nervous at this point. I'm just like, what would she allow to happen, for this or that, or,
I know.
just like, you watch somebody kind of go one time and you're like, okay, well, what's next?
Julie, is Michigan term limited? The governor?
He's done.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for Virginia, for people who don't know, Virginia is one of the only states that has a 1 term limit. So you only serve 1 term as governor, and then that's it. So
but you can come back though.
You can. It's only 1 term consecutively.
That's what
that is
McAuliffe
correct.
did, right?
That is correct.
He tried to.
Well, yeah, and then he lost to Youngkin.
Yeah, Glenn.
Because he didn't listen.
Pumpkin.
Because he didn't listen. Julie,
Listen, it's the same bullshit that we saw happen in New York, where the
Yep.
Yeah.
and by the way, this ties into the Bezos thing that I want to talk about because there is a through line here.
Mm-hmm.
These really out of touch,
Yeah.
really affluent establishment figures get together and decide that they know best. Where there is throwing a $55 million wedding, which is the most tone deaf fucking sorry dad thing that I can possibly think about, even if you can afford it. Incredibly, if you want to spend $55 million, do it quietly. Do it in some castle in Italy.
Well, right. Like have it shut up, make the helicopters fly
Yeah.
over top.
You
Yeah.
don't
like,
shut
try to
down an
get
entire
paparazzi.
freaking
Shut
city.
down the city
Right.
in the
Unless
middle
you're
of
going to
the
donate another $55 million to the city and give them money for infrastructure or whatever, because Italy's not a wealthy country.
right.
No,
Do you know
it's
what I
not.
mean?
And Venice is falling apart.
Right.
Yes. So that's one. But two, tied into this is the same nonsense that you saw happen with Terry McAuliffe, where Terry McAuliffe, comma, really rich
Yeah.
established guy, decided that this was the perfect time to come back to Virginia, leapfrog people who were in a much, who would work their butts off to be in a position to run for governor, and decide that he was going to take his governorship back. Nobody asked for Terry McAuliffe to run again, but he did. And as a result of that, Glenn Youngkin became governor. And as a result of that, we have what's going on at UVA right now, among other really bad things happening in your home state.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Glenn Youngkin
is
is
so
worth
rich.
$500 million.
He's Mr.
He was a private equity guy.
Yeah.
Like $500 million. And he threw on a freaking parka vest
That's
and
what I
tried
was
to be
gonna
like,
say.
I'm cool.
He wears the Patagonia Wall Street, hedge fund trader vest that they all wear. And he would wear it everywhere because he's a finance guy. Like he is a super finance guy who's
Legit
worth
finance, bro.
hundreds of millions of dollars.
And the same thing happened in New York this week, where the powers that be decided that the antidote to a democratic socialist, of the nearly 9 million people who live in New York City, Andrew Cuomo was not one of them until he decided to run, by the way. The one person that they could all get behind was Andrew Cuomo. Nobody asked Andrew Cuomo to run.
I don't think that Zoran would have won had it not been. I think that was a huge variable. And a couple people are mentioning in the comments. I just want to touch on this. They're saying, did you see Chris Cuomo's rant?
I was just going to say that. Did you see Chris Cuomo go off on this?
I saw clips about it.
Unhinged.
What happened?
Unhinged. Well, he's going.
He's unhinged.
I had it on me. Well, I mean,
you can Google it, folks. It's out there.
I'll start by saying I don't know Chris Cuomo personally. I've only just watched him on TV like everybody else here, but except for maybe the two of you. But something broke inside this man during COVID.
No question about it. He's not the guy I knew at CNN.
No, something broke inside of him, and he is a different person now. And his commentary, I think, has become unacceptable in a lot of ways, and
it became unacceptable when he started bringing Bill O'Reilly on his show on News Nation and started talking about UFOs. This was a couple 2 years ago.
I'll tell you what happened to him.
He went off. He went off about basically his brother losing, and how the Democrats are basically throwing the whole party away and are destroying the party. And Zoran is this, and Zoran is this. And like, here's the thing, guys. I did not support Zoran's campaign. Okay. Like but it has nothing to do with anything other than a lot of his policy proposals. I think that all of us here would agree with Zoran in the fact that affordability is an issue and healthcare is an issue. Like, listen, all these things, housing, there's a housing crisis.
And he ran a great campaign. We give him the execution of his campaign was that's the lesson that the Democrats should be learning, not the policy positions he's taking.
No.
Very, very problematic. But anyway.
Right. And he's going to have to go to Albany and be begging for money. Like, I mean, this is the whole thing. It's just, I can't. Anyways.
It's the Bernie Sanders. Look, I don't want, this is going to open up a whole can of worms, but I'm going to jump after this. Yeah, I know. I'm going to jump after this, but it's the Bernie Sanders, Bernie bro kind of attitude about this and approach to governing that all that like economic populism that a lot of people jump to because it sounds great because they promise you the world, and it's completely
Mhm.
impractical to govern that way
Yeah.
in this type of system. And so it's very difficult because people are
Mhm.
hurting, and affordability and the cost of living and all of that is very real. And there's a lot
Mhm.
of inequity, and it's
Yeah,
not
people
right.
are suffering, like,
Yes, and that's
legitimately.
all legit. But it's the MAGA Trump approach in reverse.
Yes.
And so
All
it's
or
like
nothing. All or
it's
nothing.
you have to be very careful of that.
Yes, there could be a bill being proposed or something. And listen, we've watched this so many times that there could be one little thing that they like these folks don't like and they'll vote against it.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
no
purity.
compromise. Like
It's
that's how
purity.
you cannot legislate. You cannot govern that way, especially
No.
in the biggest city in the country, which all of our tax dollars not only give how
Hmm.
much to the state of New York, but to the rest of
Yep.
the country. Like,
Yes.
you
It's
know,
like
there's a
running a country. I mean, New York is
yeah.
like running a little country, and it's
Yes.
it's a very complicated thing that you can't just you don't
I,
want a newcomer. You don't want a newcomer that doesn't have
no.
that level of executive experience coming in and
Right.
like trying to make all these changes, and like it's a very complicated political machine, as you guys know. And
Yeah.
it's like I hear you, it's a fresh face, and like they're like, yeah, that's what we need to shake it up. But yes,
Like,
but you also
yes,
need a
but
certain amount of
no.
maturity and understanding how to govern. It's very, what is it? You campaign in politics and govern. Oh, can't take campaign in prose and govern in
Said that?
politics or
Yeah.
Who
whatever.
said that?
Well,
Mario
like
Cuomo.
I'd rather have an
Yes,
unrealistic
Mario
guy like
Cuomo said that.
Zoran
You
than
campaign in poetry, you govern in prose.
right.
yeah.
That's
And
right.
here's
And Joe is saying here, I'd rather have an unrealistic guy like Zoran than Matt. Same, absolutely. But I don't want a MAGA person running the city. I mean, like, oh my
Right.
God,
Right.
R.I.P. New York. But you know, it's. I wish that there had been. I think what we're all trying to say here is that the Democrats have shit the bed in the fact that there's hubris and arrogance attached not only to Andrew Cuomo, but to the Democratic establishment, and that they think
Yeah.
that the old ways still work and that they
Nope.
are the rightful owners of all the power and all the seats, and there is no room for anybody else. And they, you
And
know,
because they haven't fought and gone out there and thrown the
right.
playbook of old out and adjusted to the moment, it opened the door for people to be like, well, if you old crusty dudes aren't going to do something about it, then we're going to go with the guy that's giving us
Which I
something to feel a
understand.
part of. And this is how it happens.
Absolutely. And people,
listen.
it's that line from an American president. I've said this before. It's
Hmm.
where Michael J. Fox comes in. He's like, with all due respect, sir, he's like, you're not talking. It's the other ones who were talking. And he was like, and
Yep.
these people are so thirsty that they'll drink the sand. And like
That's right.
that's it. Like if you're not talking and you're not fighting, people are gonna go to the one who's talking to them. And
It's
like
true.
I get it. 1,000%. But
Here's
there has to be more diversity in that.
here's
Anyways.
the problem. The problem is that the only people on our side of the aisle are watching, going out there and fighting, are Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Yes.
Jasmine
Yes.
Crockett, who's not part of the squad, but the most high-profile people who are holding rallies across the country. It's
Mhm.
not Chuck Schumer. It's not Barack
No.
Obama.
It's not Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries. It's not Michael Bloomberg, who just.
It's definitely not Ken Martin and the
Not
DNC,
Ken
for
Martin.
fuck's sake.
But so, as much as the establishment wants to sit here and bitch and complain that I can't believe that we got rejected, I
Right.
understand. And I did not rank, as a New York City voter, I know you are too, Michelle, I did not rank Zoran Mandami
Me neither.
on my ballot. I did not rank Andrew Cuomo. I knew that
Me neither.
I knew that my vote was being thrown away because I ranked neither of them, which meant that it didn't matter because none of the other guys that I did rank had a shot. But I will tell you that what was so upsetting to me is that I felt like I was having Andrew Cuomo forced down my throat. And because Andrew Cuomo was forced down my throat, Brad Lander, for instance, who could have been a good alternative to Mondani,
Wonderful.
was not
Wonderful.
elevated by the establishment. And he boxed out,
Yeah.
better people like Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner of New York. Now, granted, look, I know her. I'm a big fan of hers. She's done an excellent job as police commissioner in New York.
Mhm.
And would somebody like Jessica Tisch have, I don't know, I didn't speak to her about this, but would she have run if everybody had not lined up behind Andrew Cuomo? Who was asking for Andrew Cuomo other than
No, but
Very
other
safe.
than Andrew Cuomo.
other than the next time that Democrats bitch and complain about the 28th woman who will eventually come out and say that Donald Trump sexually harassed her.
Right.
Republicans will have every excuse to say, well, who the hell are you guys to complain? You all
Yep.
got behind Andrew Cuomo.
Yes,
Yep.
it's true.
And-
It's
Well,
problematic, man. The implications
Listen,
of this are vast. They're vast, and
I-
it's going to be a political albatross for the Democrats going into the midterms if this guy wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's gonna be the boogeyman. He's gonna
Yep.
be, the new mascot of the
Yes.
Democratic Party. But I'd like to read this quote or this tweet from S.E. Cupp, Tara, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So she wrote, not a Zoran fan for all the reasons, which should be very clear if you know me, but also F Cuomo. She says the real word. I just don't say it because my parents watch the show. And to every Dem who decided, quote, we'll take a little history of sexual harassment, end quote, to get him elected. F you too. You're no better than Trump. Either you stand by women or you think we're disposable if power is on the line, or
Yep.
you think only Trump's character matters, or you think lying is only bad when Republicans do it, or you think one person is big enough to justify massive collateral damage. There is a party for that, and you are in the wrong one.
Good
And I
for
thought
her.
that was like perfectly
Yep.
said.
And
Good
let
for
me
Nancy
her.
Cupp is a longtime Republican, right? I mean, she
Yes.
was. I don't know if
Yes.
she still is, but
yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if she still is, but she was. We actually, we worked together for a year. We co-hosted a show together on Glenn Beck's
Mm.
former network. So yeah, I have my.
I don't
differences
agree with a
her on
lot
some
of things that she has to say, or
Yeah, I
haven't
mean, I
over
have
the
my
years,
differences
but
with her too, but
she's
she's
very
right
good.
here.
She's very,
She's right here.
I wrote a Substack, which I'll drop into this chat in a minute,
Mhm.
but I just want to read just one thing from it because it's kind of similar to what SE said. I didn't realize she wrote this.
Mhm.
I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs. They're very short. Little notice the discussion of Tuesday's shocking New York City primary results is a decision by Democratic voters to reject a sexual predator in favor of someone who, as far as we know, does not have a history of treating anyone who dares to criticize him as an enemy to be destroyed. Sound familiar? In style and in substance, Andrew Cuomo bears a striking resemblance to Donald Trump. Like Trump, he's been accused of sexual misconduct by more than a dozen women.
Mhm.
According to Politico, a Department of Justice report found that Cuomo repeatedly subjected women in his office to non-consensual sexual contact, ogling, and gender-based nicknames.
Mm.
Top Cuomo staff were aware of the conduct and retaliated against 4 of the women he harassed. Like Trump, Cuomo severely mishandled the COVID pandemic. I can go on here. I'm not going to. Like Trump, he used taxpayer dollars to go after his perceived enemies, including in one instance where he subpoenaed the gynecological and therapy records of a former aide who accused him of sexual harassment. He leaked the personnel files of another accuser, told a sitting assembly member that I can destroy you for raising questions about his handling of the pandemic, and used his powers to dismantle, undermine, and legally challenge ethics commissions, at one point successfully halting a major ethics investigation. What the hell are Democrats in the establishment getting behind Donald Trump?
Crazy.
Behind his name.
Yes.
Crazy. And they wonder
Andrew
why people
Cuomo is
don't.
a bad person.
Yeah, and they wonder why. And then they wonder why people are like, we're not listening to you guys. You wonder why they don't
Mhm.
have any credibility. It's so frustrating for
Right,
those
and
of us
they
who
look
know
at this
better.
and they're like, okay, well, Zoran, and like again, like not our cup of tea, but like I understand why so many
I get
people
it.
Right.
look at him
Me
and be
too.
like, here's a guy he's married, he's seems like he loves his family, he's speaking to the things that I care about, he's speaking
young.
authentically, he's young, he's in the streets, he's shaking everybody's hand. Like I get it, and I don't want to like answer all these comments because it's just not like, I mean, I'll do this all day, but like, listen, it's like she's so Saskia is saying, why is everyone going after Zohran Mamdani? Have we not seen Trump? Now Zohran Mamdani is a murderer and Trump is an angel. No one
No.
is saying
Nobody
that. No one
said
is saying that.
that.
I'll tell you why.
Like again, false equivalencies. Nobody
Yeah.
has said that. Is
Like-
I don't know who's saying that, but nobody here has ever said that.
No,
But
no,
this also, I
certainly
think,
not
comes from
this
people
group.
who either don't know, and also from people that may or may not know his history and things that he said before his very shiny, manufactured, well-executed campaign videos and things.
Mhm.
This guy has a history, and a very troubling one, of things that he has said and things that he has, advocated for. So, and we
Mhm.
are aware of that, and that we have a problem with it. We have a
Yeah.
problem with it. So, and we're allowed
Let me
to.
Let me say this as the Jewish person in this group.
Yeah.
Right? So I just want people to understand, and I don't know, this has nothing to do with how you feel about what's happening in Gaza. I don't like it.
Mhm.
It should have been over a
Who
long time.
does? I mean, my God.
Who else was
Right.
going on there need to end. So this is not a conversation about Gaza. I am not an Israeli citizen. I am an American citizen, and I'm a resident of the city of New York, which Mamdani wants to run. So here is my perspective. If I said to you that I have an All Lives Matter flag, and an African-American person said to me, do you not understand why that is offensive? And I said, but what do you mean? All lives matter. That also means your Black life matters, but it means all life matters. You would rightly say, come on, stop explaining to me how I should feel about an All Lives Matter flag.
Right.
However, the number of people who have told Jews in New York City to just get over the phrase globalize the intifada, that it doesn't really mean what we think it means, that it doesn't really mean that you want to take violence against Jews that was happening during the first and the second intifada, in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s.
And for people who are calling for a third, by the way, like it's wild.
We want to export that globally, which means also bring it to New York.
Right.
I don't think we as Jews need to justify that any more than any African American needs to justify to you why a white flag, why all lives matter flags are offensive to them when the focus should be on Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And I'm telling you now, in a city that has seen an incredible rise in anti-Semitism, I don't understand for the life of me why Zoran Mamdani cannot just go and meet with the rabbi at the Park Avenue Synagogue on the Upper East Side, sit down with him, hear him out on this, and then walk out and say, you know what? I now understand.
Yeah.
And part of being a leader is talking to people and learning and growing and not doubling down on things that are offensive because they are offensive. So that's one reason I never put him on my ballot. If he had done that, maybe. The other reason I put him on the ballot.
I think just really quick, Julie, I think that for people who don't understand, I think you have to explain a little bit what globalize the intifada means. Because there's a lot of people that don't know what that means and why it's so horrific.
And there's a lot of people who are new to this.
Yes. So let me just say this.
Topic.
Look, the Israeli-Palestinian issue has been very fraught. And there is not unanimity on this issue at all within the Democratic Party, outside the Democratic Party, among Jews, among conservative Jews, liberal Jews, progressive Jews. 10 people will have 10 different opinions on it. However, historically speaking, what the Intifada was an uprising against Jewish Israelis by Palestinians. And I don't care if you think there was a predicate for it or a reason for it. It was specifically not violence between Palestinians and other Palestinians, violence against Jews who happen to be Israeli. That happened once in the 80s. It happened again in the early 2000s, the second Intifada. The root causes of it, we can debate. It doesn't matter for the purposes of this discussion what the root causes are. Do they have a reason to uprise? Maybe. But what you're saying by saying you're going to globalize the Intifada is that you're bringing violence against Jews globally. Now, I am a Jew. I have never gone into Gaza. I have never killed any babies. I have never starved a population. I'm simply a Jew. So if you're talking about globalizing the Intifada, you're talking about globalizing violence against Jews.
Yep.
For whatever reason it is. Not against Israelis, which, by the way, I don't condone either, but against Jews. And if you're the mayor of New York and you support globalizing the Intifada, that means that the largest Jewish population of any city outside Tel Aviv, Israel, is in the city that you want to represent.
And problem.
And as a Jewish New Yorker, I don't want anybody globalizing violence against Jews. Because I happen to be a Jew who lives in New York, and I don't want my mayor espousing that.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that if Zoran Mamdani opened his ears and listened to what I just said, I'm confident that he would probably agree with me.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. But I don't understand why he won't do that. And I don't understand why he's debating it. And I don't understand why it's more important to appeal to 20-year-olds who are shutting down the campus of Columbia University, because that's the woke group that you think you need to enfranchise, who don't understand what that phrase means.
Yep.
Okay.
Or
And
they
when you
do and they agree with it. That's the other
when you
cynical
say
alternative here, is
when
that he's not condemning it because maybe that's what he feels.
And
And that's a
maybe he
problem.
doesn't, but
and then
like we
and
need
if,
to
and if
know
he
Right.
one
does,
way or
that's a
another.
real problem. When you say
Yeah.
the
Right.
phrase from the river to the sea, I found it hilarious when they asked people on campus at colleges what that means, which river, what sea, and they didn't understand. The river is the Jordan River. It is the eastern boundary
Yep.
of Israel. The sea is the Mediterranean Sea, the western boundary.
Yep.
So if you're talking about from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That means you are going to get rid of all the Jews living in Israel right now and get rid of Israel. Now, Zohran Mamdani said that he supports Israel's right to exist. He doesn't, as a country, has not said anything about Israel's right to exist as a Jewish country. I am telling you right now
Mm-hmm.
that what that means is that you will get rid of every single Jew living there, right? If it's not a Jewish country anymore.
I mean, that's what it would mean in any other context other than this one. And the fact that people are beating around the bush or making excuses for him because he put on a flashy campaign and he's not Chuck Schumer is why we are continuing to talk about this days and days later, and we'll keep talking about this until I mean, I'm skeptical that there's anything he could say that would convince me otherwise, that he doesn't actually believe this.
Yeah.
But this is the political headache that the Democrats now have, because this is the guy that's potentially going to represent New York City in this
Right.
environment with Donald Trump. It's a disaster. On that
Right.
note, I am going to go now because I hear breakfast is happening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
go, and I may or may not be a little hungover from last night. I mean, I feel pretty good now, but Taylor ham, egg, and cheese is going to make this even better. And there may or may be video of me singing karaoke and Living on a Prayer epically last night with the band at Bum Rogers. However, my husband forgot to press play.
Oh
It was a
no.
5-minute epic performance, probably one of my best, because you guys all know that Living on a Prayer is my go-to karaoke song. I've sung it on 5 continents and 2 cruise ships. It is my go-to. And last night was a particularly epic performance, probably the best since I did it at 4 a.m. at a red light district bar called Casablanca in Amsterdam in 2006.
I have an
And
idea.
Marcel went to show me the video. And he's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what happened."
No.
I said, "You can't be serious." So the video I sent you guys, it was like all of 10 seconds, was someone else who was like, they were filming something else, but I happened to be in the background. So there is at least 10 seconds that exists that shows I was there. But the whole performance, I think, is in the ether, and we're just gonna have to have it live in epic memories, because
Well,
my
I
poor
think
husband had a few too many and didn't realize he didn't press play.
I think the next time you come up to New York, we should all go to Koreatown and go do a little karaoke.
I mean, Michelle is the master here. She like legit can sing and legit used to host karaoke nights, and that's like how she met her husband. We've got to do it.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Except like if
Michelle,
you're drinking
we're
alcohol,
doing
I
it.
know. I always feel
do it
like
Springsteen
extremely
and not-
obnoxious doing these
What?
things, but
Don't
Yeah.
feel obnoxious. We all
Why?
know you can sing.
well,
That's-
because I used to be a professional singer.
So
I
what?
always feel
So
like
what?
How was Annie in my 6th grade play? I'll take you on.
I mean, the point of karaoke, after everybody's thrown a few drinks back, we all sound like Mariah. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
I will
love you
never.
guys.
I will never. Yeah. No. Anyways, I had a story, but yeah, you keep going.
All right.
Yeah.
Enjoy
All
your
right.
sandwich.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, Bye.
Cheers from the Jersey Shore. See you guys.
So
I
the
just-
other thing I want to say about Mamdani and why I don't like him is I think all of his policies are bullshit and he's not going to accomplish any of them. And while I would love to have free buses,
Yeah, I mean that'd be great,
yeah.
but again, we
Thing,
have to go to I mean, you know who controls the MTA is the state of New York.
New York.
And so like it's not like hold on, let me just I think Tara's like frozen or something, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
take her out. There we go. You have the MTA is controlled by the governor in the state of New York. So like he's going to have to go to, the state legislature and ask for this money, and it's like that's
He's
the
not
New
going to
York
get
State no, they're not, because the New York State legislature is not all people who agree with these things, and they all have their districts things that they care about and things that they want. So I just, and upstate, downstate, anybody who doesn't live in New York, like there's a whole
Everybody hates New York. If you're not-
Everybody hates New York City. Everybody wants to like secede from New York City. It's a whole thing. I'm from Northern New York. People hate New York City, and it's just a thing. And there's a lot of resentment, even though New York City tax dollars fund the rest of the state.
Hey,
You can't.
I smoke and I know things. You guys have no idea what it's like to be dirt poor. I actually came to this country with $90 between the three of us.
Yeah. Anybody who doesn't know here, let me just speak for
Yeah.
you, Julie. I'm sorry. Julie is a Jewish Soviet refugee who came here when she was 7 years old with like $90 and her parents. And
I lived in the
before-
Bronx in the hood. Trust me, you
Yes.
could not be more in the
Yes.
hood in 1980 when the Bronx was burning. So
Yes.
I do know what it's
Yes.
like to be dirt poor.
yes.
I climbed out of there, clawing and scraping on my own. Nobody gave
Yeah.
me anything.
Right.
So I do know what it's like to be dirt poor. I do know what it's like to be on food stamps, which we were on. I do
Mhm.
know what it's like to shop at Kmart for clothes if you're even lucky to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
I know all of that. And let me tell you something right now. I'm very realistic. Very, very, very realistic about what it's like. And that's why I'm a
Mhm.
Democrat and not a Republican. But I'm
Mhm.
also realistic about the fact that as somebody who has run, I don't know how many campaigns in my life, probably close to 1,000 over the last 30 years, I can tell you that you don't lie to your voters and you don't promise them shit that you know because you're a sitting assembly member.
And it's dishonest. Right. He's assembly member. He knows this.
He
That's the
knows
thing
he has to go to the
makes me
state.
crazy.
He knows this is not somebody who just fell off the turnip truck. He knows
No.
that he can't.
And he's been in for 2 terms already. Like
Yeah.
he's
He
been there for a
knows.
while and understands how this works and how it happens. And like, and the thing is, it's like, and I'm, this is where I start. I'm like, I have to stop reading the comments because, I disagree with you guys. You're doing the same thing the establishment is doing. No. And then
No.
it's like, oh my God, maybe the newcomer is the answer. Maybe establishment is the
You're
problem.
right.
Establishment is the problem.
You're right.
Absolutely. But this is just what makes me crazy. Because again, it's like if there is this thing that is happening on the left, and it feels like if you don't agree with 100% of the people or the way to go about these problems that I think we all agree that exist, it's like, I don't know, we're like awful people or something. And I just it's not healthy politically. It's not healthy in a democracy to kind of be like that. I mean, it's your right to think that or say it or feel it or whatever. I don't think it's fair. And I agree, the establishment is the problem. And if you watch our show regularly, we talk about that all the time. It is the establishment and their old way of thinking and their stubbornness and their grip on power that they refuse to let go of that has gotten us to this place and is enabling a fascist dictator to take over the United States. So, I agree with that, but it doesn't mean that we all have to agree on like who those people are going to be, who or the way that we're going to go about getting our way out of that. So,
And the other thing I would say is, I'm sorry, 33-year-olds with no experience.
yeah.
I'm skeptical. I am skeptical that a 33-year-old who's had zero executive experience, whose only job, from what I could tell when he wasn't interning for his mom, was being an
Yeah.
assembly member for a couple of terms,
Yeah.
which, congratulations, he got
Yeah,
elected.
I mean, that's real.
Not a
Yeah.
heavy lift. Being mayor of New York is the second, I believe strongly, it is the second toughest job in America after being president of the United States. We already have an incompetent as president of the United States.
And we
need
have an incompetent mayor now, and things are not going well.
incompetent mayor now, and we had an incompetent mayor before him
Yeah.
named Bill de Blasio. And so,
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you
He
guys.
wasn't my favorite.
Do you think that Trump telling his people that he's going to build the wall, which was a complete lie, and he used lie, convincing them that he was going to build the wall, do you think that worked out well for them? Because the wall's not built and it's never going to be built.
Yeah.
And yet he's convincing them that he convinced them that it was going to be built. This is the same thing. You're not going to get free buses.
Listen, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But, if I'm wrong, I'll lay down and say, I was wrong and you can all own me. But until then, my concerns still are what they are. We've both lived here a long time. I've been here for over 2 decades, and I talked about this on our show the other night with Tara. I was like, I moved here almost 21 years ago to the day. I came to New York City with 3 suitcases and $250 in my checking account. I cat sit people so I could live in their apartments. I once lived in a closet that didn't have a door. I was on Medicaid to have healthcare for at least 3 years when I didn't make enough money to afford anything. There were times, my parents, I come from a blue collar background, a family of first responders. My dad was a union leader. And, my parents threw me a bone every now and then just to make sure I was eating and whatnot. But, I've worked my ass off to get where I am and to have the things that I have. And, it has been for the city of New York that has, it's a tough place to live. It's a very, very tough place to kind of try to make it. And it
Yeah.
should be affordable for people to try to make it here. And the way that the wealth inequality and income inequality in the city has become insane even in the last 10 years. Like, yes, there is something that needs to be done about this. It's crazy. The artists, because I came here as an artist, like I was an actor and a singer. I came here and you could afford an apartment for the most part. Like if you lived in Queens or if you lived, in certain parts of Hell's Kitchen, places like that, like 20 years ago were affordable for New York. Right. But now,
It's
it's my husband and I were looking around. We rent, I don't own my home. We were looking around because it was our lease renewal time. And we're looking around and seeing what else is, in our neighborhood or maybe a little further north because we keep having to move north because we can't afford anything. And it's like, what the kind of apartment that we have in another building is like twice what we pay. And I'm like, how is anyone living here? How is it's obscene what is happening. But I also think that just getting rid of everything and putting it's like that, the backlash to that, first of all, and then second of all, there's always just like another monetary legislative aspect to all this. It's like, how do you do it? I don't know. And how do you do it in a way that doesn't backfire and cause more problems? So, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but
I don't either, but I will tell you, if you think there's not enough millionaires, there's not enough people making over $1 million in New York to pay for everything that he wants to pay for. Even if you raise taxes on them, there's just not enough of them. And, it's a pipe dream. And I don't like people selling pipe dreams to people. Saskia,
Yeah.
if I was worried about being deported by Trump, I will tell you, after yesterday's decision,
Yeah,
with
that's
birthright
real.
citizenship, now they're going to rule on birthright citizenship next term more broadly. But the decision yesterday that basically says different judges can make different rulings based on executive orders, that you can't have a global executive order nationally. That means that, of course, if you were born to an undocumented immigrant in New York, you'll be okay because a judge will probably rule for you. If you were born in Alabama or Mississippi, you're out of luck.
Right.
And my suspicion is that the next thing they're moving on is naturalization. And they've already, speaking of Zohran Mamdani,
which is, again, like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy time. Like,
Yeah.
what?
You have Andy Ogles, who's a crazy ass
racist and Islamophobe and hater.
Yeah.
What a terrible person.
Saying that he wants to denaturalize Mamdani, I guess, for the globalized intifada thing. Look, I don't agree with that statement.
Yeah, but no, but we would never, this is horrendous.
You don't denaturalize somebody based on their First Amendment.
No.
And, with this Supreme Court, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. I wouldn't be surprised if they succeeded. And if you're going to denaturalize somebody for that, then you're going to denaturalize somebody for anything else that they deem to be un-American. And I'm sure that Donald Trump has said a lot of un-American things, because I've been critical of him. And of course, he thinks, as the 14th said, l'état c'est moi, he is the state. And so therefore, if you're criticizing him, you're criticizing America. And so do I think that I would be denaturalized?
This is I can't with this shit. Yeah. I really just can't. I can't. Anyways, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. We lied about him being, did I ever say he's anti-Semitic? No, I said he does not understand how phrases like globalized intifada affect Jewish people. That's very different than being anti-Semitic.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, can I just say, then we can get back to the naturalization thing. I just want to say that, as the non-Jew here, and apparently one of the only non-Jews in all my friends' lives that speaks up and has moral clarity about this, I think, that because we can hold different opinions, right, all at the same time. We can think that what's happening in Gaza is terrible and yet care about our Jewish friends and our Jewish neighbors and want to keep them safe. In the city, Jewish people take up 12% of the population, but 56% of the hate crimes. Like, what does that tell people? 12% of the population, yet 56% of the hate crimes. And so, you know, I was Cameron Kasky put this thing on his Instagram the other day that just like pissed me off in ways I cannot describe. He basically was like, I get why Jewish people are upset, but hey, let me explain to you why you're wrong. You can't do that to people. You
Don't
can't
voice-
tell
don't voice
you
it.
can't tell marginalized groups of people that they shouldn't be upset about something or they shouldn't feel something. And some of the comments, I mean, this is where my feelings about the cruelty of just, I'm talking just across the board, not just about this, but everything, the casual cruelty that people are displaying towards each other and like the lack of compassion and empathy for what other people are going through is really, really starting to get to me. Because one of the comments I saw was about somebody said that Jews are just Islamophobes wrapping themselves in victimhood. Another person said Jews are generationally brainwashed and we all need to get together to deprogram them. Like, I'm sorry. You cannot, I mean, yes, you're free to say these things, but these are horrible things to say. And I will stand up for people like Julie and others every day of my life. And as I would for any group of people. And I would hope that the rest of us do too.
I mean,
Because it's just it's wrong. It's wrong.
I guess what upsets me is that Jews have been allies, I think, in the fight for civil rights in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendously, the Freedom Riders were Jewish, and I think it saddens a lot of us that
Yes.
that the same grace that would be given to people of color who are concerned about their own well-being and their own safety, as you said, 56% of all hate crimes in New York.
Yeah. That's like
so over 50%. I mean, everybody else gets to split it, but we have the bulk of them.
mm-hmm.
And would you ever say to an African American person who said, you know what, as I keep saying, your all lives matter flag offends me,
Right.
Who
Or
started-
gay people,
or
or
gay
women,
or
or
gay-
or
gay
Muslim people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's anybody.
Would you
And I
ever say to
just-
them as a white person or as a straight person, I'm going to explain to you why you're wrong? Like, would you ever say to a
I can't
gay
imagine
person,
just a thing. I
would
can't.
you ever
It's
say to a gay person who said, you know what, I'm very offended.
disabled people too. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm very offended that you're back, 20 years ago. I'm very offended that I can't get married. Right. I'm very offended that marriage is not in the cards for me and the man or the woman that I've been living with for the last 30 years, effectively as a lifelong partner, but we are not allowed to sign a piece of paper. Would you as a straight person ever say to them, you just don't get it? You know what? You don't get it. Marriage is different. Marriage is between men and women. And it's just, of course not, because you're a good progressive. Would you ever say to Black people, oh, you know what, that Blue Lives Matter flag offends you? But no, it's just about cops. It's not about you.
Yeah.
Of course you wouldn't, because it's
Yeah.
insensitive. Why are you explaining to Jewish people how we should feel about the phrase globalized intifada? Is it not enough for you to understand that it's hurtful and it's offensive to us?
Right.
It makes us scared. Because as Michelle pointed out, before we globalized intifada, 56%
Mm-hmm.
of all hate crimes in New York are already directed at us.
Yep.
It wasn't anybody else who was mowed down and massacred in Colorado a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was Jewish people who were simply marching to release hostages in Gaza. They were not marching
Yes.
for IDF. They were not marching in support of Bibi Netanyahu. They just wanted hostages released. I think we could all agree that these hostages should be released.
Yes.
They're the ones that got killed. It wasn't anybody else who got murdered outside an American Jewish Committee event in New York a few weeks ago. It was two Jewish people, simply because they were Jewish. And the person that killed them said that he was doing it because they were Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to, I don't know why I'm giving a thumbs up. And yet we are supposed to sit here and feel that somehow our concerns are white privilege and Islamophobic and anti-progressive and we just want to keep the status quo and whatever else. And I've always said people love dead Jews. They love to mourn dead Jews. You know,
Yeah,
everybody loves to mourn Anne Frank. Everybody loves to mourn the Holocaust.
it's so funny. My friend Shoshana
Yeah.
said that to me yesterday too.
Yeah.
Like almost verbatim. She said the same thing to me.
But
She's like, people love to be sad about us. People love
yeah,
to use us in their arguments. They love to, and it's just,
but yet nobody likes it. But yet the minute, Jews come into their power a little bit, oh, you guys are white privileged. We're not. I hate to say this. Maybe our skin is white. We're not considered white by anti-Semites.
yeah, that's true.
You think Steve Bannon considers us white?
or the Unite the Right
The
rally
white
at
guys
Charlottesville.
consider us white?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I came from a country where we fled because we were Jewish, and my skin color is exactly the same as Vladimir Putin's. You think he considers me on the level with him? He doesn't.
Right. Well, and speaking of Vladimir Putin, I mean, if you wanted to take it back to the conversation we were having about naturalization or denaturalization, I don't know if you want to tell people about your experience with kind of leaving Russia and
Yeah,
when you
so
were at
understand.
Fox and everything that was happening there. Yeah.
Understand. So I was 6 when I left Russia, right? And we left
Mhm.
because we were Jewish, and not because my parents are religious, because they're not. But because in the Soviet Union, as in Europe during the Holocaust, as is here among anti-Semites, Judaism is not considered a religion. It's not a religious preference any more than, I could become Catholic tomorrow.
Right.
It is considered a race. And so when the Nazis came for you, it didn't matter whether you'd converted to Christianity. If you had one grandparent out of 4 who was Jewish, you were going to the gas chamber. That's all there is to it. And it was a race. Didn't matter
Right.
if you had, been baptized from birth or anything else.
Right.
And same thing in the Soviet Union where I was born. So we left and we came here. And as I said, we came here with no money. But once I got to Fox News, where I was the token Democrat before anybody jumps down my throat.
You were like the Jessica Tarlov, right? Up your
I was
time.
I was Jessie Tarlov. If anybody knows who Jessica Tarlov is, I had that job before she did. I was the token Democrat on the 5.
For like 10 years, right? For about a decade.
I was there for 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left because I sued Roger Ailes for sexual harassment. But I will say to you that if anybody here knows Jessica Tarlov, that was my job. In fact, Jessie replaced me when I left. Jessie got the contract.
Mhm.
And she's great. And if anybody here knows her,
she's wonderful.
fantastic.
Really smart.
But when I was at Fox, they had just launched Fox Digital, which at the time, digital was not a big. This was about now almost 10 years ago. Digital was just starting out, and they gave me my own show in digital. And the good thing about Fox is they were not paying attention to digital at all. And so as a result, I and my friend Emily, who helps us with the show, who's my producer, did the show where we were basically doing whatever we wanted and nobody paid attention to us. So all I did was go after Vladimir Putin. I would look straight into the camera. If you Google it on YouTube, I think it's still there.
Mhm.
I would speak Russian to Vladimir Putin and I would completely MF him in Russian. And I was like, stop interfering in our elections, stop invading foreign countries, stop, murdering dissidents abroad. And I would do this in Russian where I would speak into the camera. Fox had no clue this was happening, allowed me to do it because they had no clue. But the Russians knew.
Mm.
And the Russian consulate sent, I believe, a complaint to Fox, certainly went on social media calling me a Russophobe, which is hilarious because I'm Russian.
Right.
And just really made a big deal out of it. About 4 years ago, I guess, I don't remember when, right after they invaded Ukraine.
Mm.
So almost 3.5 years ago, they released a list of about 900 people that they didn't want, that they basically banned from setting foot in Russia on penalty of incarceration for life. And I'm looking at this list and it's like Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin and Bob Menendez at the time was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee before he, went down. And Lindsey Graham and all these, all of these people who are really important people. And I'm looking, I'm like, And then I'm like, Julie Roginski. I'm like, huh? And I was like,
it's so funny. I'm just like, oh my God.
It's so funny because I was looking, nobody told me I was on this list. I was like, oh, here's a list. This is interesting. And I was like, And I was like, what? So I'm on this list. So if I ever.
I'm sure you're on Putin's list. Yes.
I am. Yes. Literally, I'm on Putin's list. So if I ever set foot in Russia, here's what's going to happen to me. I will be immediately arrested. I will be immediately sent to the gulag, where I will be probably sentenced to 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years in the gulag, and that'll be that. So when you're talking about denaturalizing somebody like me for being un-American,
Yeah.
you know, you could send me to CCOT, I guess, for being an illegal immigrant then, if all of a sudden I'm denaturalized. Or Putin can do what he's doing to this poor woman who protested the Ukraine war, who's the Harvard researcher, a woman named Ksenia Petrova, the Harvard researcher, whom he's trying to deport back to Russia, knowing full well that the minute she lands at Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow, she will be put on trial. It'll be a show trial, and then sent to the gulag somewhere in Siberia or wherever they send people. So, you know, it's not a joke. It's not like, oh, okay, he denaturalizes me and I move back to Ireland.
Right.
Or Italy or wherever.
Right.
If I'm denaturalized and I'm immediately put on a plane to Moscow, that'll be that. So thank you, Casual Observer. I appreciate your 2000.
Yeah.
I am not a secret member of Pussy Riot.
I saw that. That was
although I wish I were, because I admire them tremendously. But yeah.
And they have a great song called "Make America Great Again," and everyone should have it on their playlist because it's fantastic.
Well, I'm going to tell you, somebody here said Southern Italians weren't considered white nor Greek people. I'm going to tell you guys about a conversation I had with Tucker Carlson, which I don't know if I ever told you that conversation, Michelle.
Well, you've alluded to it, and you were like, he's not acting when he says all the things that he doesn't like about everybody.
I'm going to tell you guys about this since we're going down memory lane.
Listen, I'm enjoying this.
This is good. This is good tea here. So 2012 election night, I am a Fox and I'm waiting to go on, and I'm in the green room with Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson. And it was the night, if you people remember, where Steve Bannon, not Steve Bannon, excuse me, Karl Rove, same.
I mean, whatever at this point. Samesies.
Karl Rove could not believe that Obama won Ohio, and he freaked out on air. And Megyn Kelly, if you remember, got up and did this little walk to the brain room to make sure that it was accurate. And we're watching her walk past us to the brain room. And in fact, yes, Ohio was called for Obama, and Obama won. And Laura Ingraham looks at us and says, first words out of her mouth, she goes, "Fucking Chris Christie." And I go, "Chris Christie, what are you talking about?" And she goes, "If Christie hadn't hugged Obama, it would have been all different, but he did. And that's why we lost Pennsylvania and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, all right, whatever, go smoke whatever you're smoking. So she goes somewhere, whether she leaves or she just goes somewhere else. She just can't even be in the green room with us, and she just takes off. So now Tucker and I are looking at each other, and Tucker and I always had a really good relationship. The truth of the matter is Tucker Carlson is a really fun guy to be around with, except for the one big elephant in the room, which is that he is virulently racist, and it's not a joke.
Yeah, he's a terrible person.
Other than that, Mr. Lincoln, how is the play, right? Like, aside from the fact that he's a complete racist, great fun guy to be around.
And hates Catholics and like hates
so here's the point of what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I look at Tucker, who's upset, and Tucker goes, "You want to go in the bathroom and smoke something?" And I said, "No, Tucker, I don't smoke anything. I don't know what you're smoking, but I'm not doing it." So he does whatever he does, comes back from the bathroom, and he's like, "Oh, this is like a bad night." And I said, "Well, not for me. I'm thrilled." And he's like, "I just don't understand what happened." I said, "I'll tell you what happened. And here's where I was naive." I said, "You got to stop referring to Mexicans and other Latinos as criminals. You guys are never going to get the Latino vote if you do that." Now, how funny is that? Because of course, Donald Trump succeeded twice in doing exactly that. And Tucker goes, "What do you mean by you guys? I'm not a Republican. I'm a whatever." I said, "Tucker, your whole conservative nonsense." I said, "You guys have got to stop referring to Latinos as criminals or as inhuman."
Yeah, like what?
Like, you can't do that. And Tucker's like, and I said, "You got to stop talking about how they're bringing crime here." And Tucker goes, this is 3 years before Trump goes down the escalator. So this is well predating that.
Okay.
Tucker goes, "But they are criminals, Julie." I said, "Tucker, what do you mean they're criminals?" I go, "There are criminals in that community the way there are criminals in your community. There were criminals in my community. Like, you can't do that." No, they're criminals. They're bringing the crime here." I said, "Tucker, you sound like," no, it gets better. I said, "You sound like those people in the 1920s who who talked about
Yeah.
Catholics bringing the crime here, about the
Right.
Irish and the Italians bringing the crime here.
Right,
And
because the
Tucker,
Klan recruited. The Klan
that's what
was
the Klan,
recruiting,
if you
even in the
remember,
North, was against Catholics.
if you remember, the first iteration of the Klan after the, after the Civil War during Reconstruction was against Black people. They were
Mhm.
so successful in putting Black people down that by the time the second iteration of the Klan came around in the 1920s, there was nothing left to put down Black people. They were already so put down that they started targeting Catholics.
Right.
And Tucker says to me, "But Julie, there was no crime in this country until the Catholics." I go, "What?"
What?
And he goes, "The Irish."
There was no crime.
No, it gets better. He goes, "The Irish with their whiskey, and the Italians with their mob, and the Poles with their vodka. I mean, until they came here and fucked up this whole country, there really wasn't any crime here." And I go, "Tucker, how old are you?"
Right.
And I
What is
think
he,
at the
like,
time, I
50
think
something?
he's a couple years older than I am, so I think maybe he's
Oh,
50.
yeah.
Maybe he's
Right.
55 now, so this is like 10 years. No, what is this? More than 10
Right.
years.
So he's like, I was
Early-
roughly
early-
my
early
age at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
early to mid 40s. And I just said, I have never in my life heard anybody actually say this. I've read about this in the history books, but I've never heard anybody say this. And then when he got his own show down the road, eventually, and all of these MAGA people in Michigan and Ohio and the Rust Belt were watching him, I'm thinking, if he, a lot of whom are Catholic, a
Right.
lot of them are Italian descent or Polish descent or Irish descent. He's definitely not a prohibitionist, I promise. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking,
Yeah. Ben, this is,
holy
I
sh-
totally agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, keep going. Museum
Yeah.
of the City of New York is
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely, absolutely. So every time I'd see him, I'm thinking, if his own audience knew how much he disdained them for being Catholic and descendants of the very people who he said brought the crime here, that's who we're talking about here, you guys. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. Yep, absolutely right, Monique. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely
Who can
right.
be illegal on stolen land? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like
Yep.
that's the line.
Yep.
Jesus
Yep.
Christ. Well, you know what's funny is
Lug Dragon, big secret, Fox in the green rooms had gender neutral bathrooms.
oh wow.
Yeah.
If only people knew.
Yeah. They also had a very, very active LGBTQ community, which our friend Emily ran. They also all got vaccinated because
Yeah.
you couldn't walk into that
I'm sure
building.
before most people too.
Oh, Rupert Murdoch got vaccinated before the rest of us. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
did Emily Fox, because you couldn't walk into that building unless you were vaccinated. So all the
Right.
bullshit you peddle their people, they don't abide by.
Yeah. Just really quick, casual observer. I would love to go there. And the Tenement Museum. The Tenement Museum is fantastic.
Fantastic.
If anybody is in the city of New York, just go online, find Tenement Museum, thing, buy yourself a ticket. It's downtown. You walk through these like tiny ass tenements down on the Lower East Side. You cannot believe, I mean, it was something else. It was one of like the best things I've ever done in the city. And if you want to see what people really went through when they came here, man, it's definitely recommend. Anyways.
Hey, Dana, are you drinking wine now? Because I have so much respect for you. If I don't know where you are.
I don't know what time zone
Right.
you're in, but you know what? 5 o'clock
Good
somewhere.
for you. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. So do it. So anyway, I don't even know how we got onto this subject. How did we get onto Tucker?
Racism, Klan, Fox. I mean, it's all kind of
same thing.
yeah.
Oh, about me being deported. So I don't know, you guys.
Oh, right.
Like, whatever. I keep saying to my husband, who doesn't believe me and thinks I'm exaggerating, that it's Berlin 1933. We got to get the hell out of here. But
listen. I think we all have those people in our lives, especially in our immediate, lives, like husbands and things that, I think for some of us, like Julie and myself and Tara and Joe, we live in this all day long, every single day. And so, at least for me, like, especially at my old job, and I do still now, but not as much, thank God, for my mental health, is kind of sift through the right-wing media spaces, not just the mainstream stuff. I'm talking like dark, deep places of podcasts and things like that, and hear what these people are talking about and what their plans are. None of this is terribly shocking to us. I mean, it is shocking. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so when you live in this stuff every single day and you're reading and like really, really living in it, and you're on the receiving end of a lot of really terrible language, um, you know, you start to see things, you see the writing on the wall, and you try to warn people, and people are like, you know, come on, come on. And they don't do it out of disrespect. They're just like, that's like, you're being a bit much. This is America. This isn't going to happen. But
That's
I don't
what
know
I
about you. Right. But I'm starting to see in my life people being like, oh shit, this is bad. And I mean, I even just looked at my husband yesterday and I was like reading the SCOTUS decisions to him. And he was like, he did this. He was like, and I could just see it on his face. And he just, you know, he was like, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. I'm like, yeah.
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 Casual Observer. That book is written actually.
What?
I
Sorry, I need to go down.
I would read a book about your stories. You have some whopper stories. I actually wrote that book and I tried to sell it during the pandemic and I couldn't.
Really?
Yes, because it was mostly about Me Too stuff and the world had kind of moved on. And I actually want to say something about that because I think that's part of the reason Andrew Cuomo was resurrected by the establishment. They have convinced themselves that the Me Too movement's over. It's not over, as evidenced by what happened to Andrew Cuomo, as evidenced by the fact that Harvey Weinstein's lawyers, I know his lawyer, Arthur Aidala, actually from I know him pretty well. He said, oh, we have a better shot now because the Me Too movement's over. Obviously not. He was convicted again.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the P. Diddy trial.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Me Too movement's over. But
I don't either. I think it definitely, there's been a backlash to it.
The establishment has convinced themselves that it's over, which is why they can resurrect people like Andrew Cuomo. And apparently the voters of New York had a different view of that.
I do think that to an extent we are living in a period of time, maybe hopefully it's very small, where people are just not giving a shit about bad people doing bad things. And, you know, it's very, very hard to watch people not care about these things. But I think eventually things are going to start to bubble up again and people are going to start to be held accountable right now because, you know, to Mary's point, it's hard to understand how people can go about their normal lives during all of this. That's how I feel every single day, whether it be, you know, people not taking this stuff seriously and not watching or not holding to account bad people doing bad things, but also just like going out. I don't know about all of you, just even just scrolling my Instagram feed and seeing people just be like, la, 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 like, I bought these new sheets and I'm like, oh my God, what?
Like, something interesting. It's not interesting. It's kind of, it kind of underscores what we're talking about. So my son and I were driving yesterday and he said to me, he was talking to one of his friends, a little girl, she's not a little, they're both 13 now. I guess they're not so
little to us.
Yeah, little to us, but his friend who does not go to school with him, she goes to school in New Jersey. He goes to school in New York. But her mother and I are very good friends. They've known each other their whole life. So he said, yeah, I was talking to Anna and she was saying that ICE came for twins or something. I think he said twins. And
oh my God.
In her class and took them away. Oh and my son said to her, you know, they were deported. And she said, really? And he said, yeah, they're being deported. And she said, what does that mean? So he had to explain all this to her. And he said to me, he goes, did they not talk about that at her house? And I said,
no, probably not.
I said, I guess not. And he's like, and he was kind of like, wow, I can't believe her parents haven't talked to her about deportations and what's happening in the news. And I said, you know, I actually, because I know her mother very well. She's a dear, dear friend of mine. She's not at all. Her mother is not political at all. She's
well,
but it's okay. She just, you know, lives her life. She's got 3 kids. She's got a lot to worry about. And politics is not
like most Americans.
Like most Americans,
honestly.
But and I said to my son, I said, you know, it's probably a lot healthier in some ways because they don't have to sit there as a 13-year-old and stress about this the way you do.
Right.
And because he's got a lot of anxiety about what's going on in the world. I mean, he just got through a war zone.
Poor kid, so man. Got
a little bit more than a share, but you know, from my perspective, like I think there are a lot of people who are just living their life and they don't have time, and it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily affect them directly. And the only thing I would say is it doesn't until it does. Eventually,
Right.
it's going to come for you too.
Yes. And that's always how it happens. I mean, that's what it was that Anne Frank wrote in her diary, right? There are bad things happening outside. People are being taken from their homes. And it's like, how many people that were living in the neighborhood looked the other way,
Everybody,
just because they didn't want to deal with it.
everybody,
And
because it's not
yeah,
happening to you
right.
until the
Until it
Lord
does.
comes to you and you're starving and
Mhm.
you're living. I mean, look at Audrey Hepburn. Nobody's taking her away, but she almost died from malnutrition, living in
Right.
Amsterdam, down
Right.
the street from Anne Frank.
Yep.
Because eventually it affects everybody.
Yep.
And you want to talk about the dinner conversations at my house? The dinner conversations at my house, somebody asked, you can only imagine what they're like. They're literally consisting of the following: Mom, can I have this? No. Can I have this? No. Can I have this? It's me being extorted 24/7 for stuff. So it's not as political as you think.
Well, right. And I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes we also need reprieve, right? Too. And it's funny because I feel like last weekend I was at one of my best friend's birthday parties in Brooklyn, and we were all like on a roof and having a good time, and it was beautiful weather. And then this came up on my phone that we were bombing Iran. I was like, God damn it. I look away from my phone for like 3 hours and we are like at war. And my friend, a different friend of mine, sent me this meme, and it's like not funny, but it is funny. It's like that flight aware thing where you can see
Yeah.
where all the planes in the world are. All these planes, um, obviously avoiding the area and the airspace around Iran and Israel. And then there's this one UAE flight in the middle of it, and someone making a joke about it, saying that that plane is, I deleted social media and stopped reading the news, and honestly my mental health has been so much better, you know meaning that not paying
Exactly.
attention also puts you in danger because you don't know what's happening around you.
Yep.
So I thought when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that is so true. So
Yeah.
true.
I mean, look, I think it's a question of how you choose to raise your kids. And
Yeah.
and I didn't have much of a choice with my parents. Especially my dad, was just
Yeah. Well, especially given
not
your
even given,
family's history.
not necessarily, because a lot of people came here and just decided they were going to move on with their lives. I just happened to have a father who was incredibly just a
Mm,
voracious news consumer and always
yeah.
talked about it.
The same in my family. Like it was
Yeah.
always, I mean, 6 o'clock news. Like we watched news and documentaries and things all the time. Like I was all up in it, you
Yeah.
know?
Um, and but meanwhile, and the same thing at our house, because I think we have a lot of news on, and my son started coming when he was born. I was a Fox, so he would come with me from birth
Oh, wow. Yeah.
to the studio, especially I just didn't have childcare to cover. I was a single mom for a long time. So I hope so. Thank you, Dana, for saying so. I hope
Yeah.
so. But the reality is, I want to talk before we go. I know we're almost to time here. We're way past
Yeah.
time. But I do want to talk about Biden paying his respects to Minnesota
Yeah.
yesterday.
Can I have
Yeah,
this, I
real
have a
quick.
few photos here, and I'm going to try not to like get choked up while I'm reading. I just would like to read what I wrote about this, if you don't mind. Um,
Yep.
Oops, let me take this. Okay, so this is a photo that was taken yesterday, of Joe Biden paying his respects to the victims of the assassinations in Minnesota 2 weekends ago that have somehow escaped our news cycle. So I'm just going to read this here. Joe Biden didn't have to come. He's no longer in office. He's fighting battles of his own. But still, Joe Biden showed up when it mattered most, like he always does. Today, he stood alone in the Minnesota Capitol Rotunda, head bowed, paying respects to State Representative Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their beloved golden retriever Gilbert. All three were murdered in their home, shot by a man impersonating law enforcement, radicalized by hatred. A politically motivated assassination in America, and barely a ripple in the news. Melissa is the first woman to ever lie in state at the Capitol. Mark the first private citizen, and Gilbert, their dog, the first animal. He wasn't just a dog. He was part of their family. A would-be service dog who failed training because he loved naps too much and chose their couch instead. I like to believe he tried to protect them and that he gave his life doing so. This kind of loss should stop the country in its tracks, but it didn't. The media moved on. Most leaders stayed silent. Joe Biden was there. Donald Trump didn't say their names. Cruelty doesn't stop to mourn, but decency does. Joe Biden didn't just pay his respects. He offered his heart. Hold on, I just want to put that picture up there. He met with mourners not as a politician, but as a man of kindness and compassion, whose character was shaped by grief of his own. Never in my lifetime has there been a kinder, more compassionate man leading this nation. Melissa, Mark, Gilbert. Remember them. And remember what kind of America we are becoming and what kind of leader we deserve. Because there is blood on the hands of Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, beautifully said. Very beautifully said, Michelle.
And this is Gilbert. I just like I can't.
I don't know why Gilbert.
I know. It's like I can't. It's like I can barely look at it.
Yeah. I just don't understand what it would cost Donald Trump to go there and to say their names, other than they were killed by a MAGA right winger and they don't want to mention that.
Yeah.
But how, it's not even a question of politics. Something is deeply, deeply, deeply broken in this man.
Mm-hmm. And the people who support him. I'm sorry, but it's all of them. It's all of them. And he's the head of the snake. And he has created a permission structure for everyone else to be their worst selves.
But I guess what's so shocking to me is how many people have that in them, right? How many people are as broken as he is? Because if this were reversed and this were a left-wing Democrat shot 2 Republicans, we would have wall-to-wall-to-wall coverage. Jake Tapper would be doing a show on it every
God.
Not just Fox, wall-to-wall-to-wall. And yet everybody just moved on.
Yep.
Everybody just moved on.
And we cannot forget these people.
And there's a jump, you guys, and I hate to be, this is going to sound hysterical, but it's not. There's a jump between that and genocide and extermination of people.
Yes.
Because if you can't do what Joe Biden did, and if you can't acknowledge what he acknowledged, and if we as a society and as a media can't take some time to focus on what happened there, then we're not going to focus on every other atrocity. And, if you think about it, if you commit murder, if you kill one person, you've committed murder. What's to prevent you from killing 10? You've already done it. You broke the seal. And if you've killed 10, what's to prevent you from killing 100? And if you killed 100, what's to prevent you from killing 1,000 or 1,000,000? Yeah. I mean, you've already crossed that. You've already crossed that boundary, broken that boundary.
And there is a saying, and I wish I had it in front of me, but the sentiment is like the amount of space between a person not committing a terrible crime and one kind of going along with it and participating in terrible crimes of humanity is very, very small. And it really just takes a little push.
Well,
because many human beings are capable of it, unfortunately.
Hannah Arendt, who was a Holocaust survivor herself, but is a philosopher in the latter part of the 20th century. I mean, she wrote a great book called The Banality of Evil, which I would recommend to people. It's old, but it's not outdated, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Timeless messages, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So like
It's
Dragon, JoJo is at the dentist. She's not in
yeah,
Venice.
she is
You
at the.
know,
I know. So
although
sorry.
she could have said that she's at the dentist and gone to the wedding, and we would never know actual evidence that she's at the
Right.
dentist.
Right.
But we
Well,
heard the word.
I do want to say also just on that note, like, and I've said this since the beginning of the pandemic that like once people become numb to mass death, horrible things can happen. And, you know, it was a matter of 10, 15 years before the beginning of the rise of the Nazis and the Holocaust that there was a pandemic in the world in 1918 that took the lives of millions of people. And there are studies that have, if you look at the places in Germany where Nazis got the biggest amount of votes, were the places that had the most amount of death from the pandemic in 1918. And there are articles and things written about this. You can go look it up. But then you look at, you know, the United States and the places that had the most amount of deaths, you know, outside the, you know, the beginning parts like New York City and whatnot. You know, these were places that are underserved because of rural healthcare or like, you know, propaganda about don't wear masks and don't get vaccinated. And it's like, you know, there's a correlation. And we are, I mean, just look what's happening with public health now. And it's just the Republican Party has become a death cult. And, you know, that's the other part of like the SCOTUS decision where they have decided that it's now legal if you're going to deport migrants who have already been othered, because the beginning of this, as we all remember, you know, oh, we're just going to get rid of the criminals and the gang members. And we all saw those like horrific visuals of CCOT, of lining up all these men, most of whom do not have criminal records and were not in gangs. And now they're taking babies and children and mothers and innocent people all over the country. And too many people are just looking the other way. And once we have become accustomed to this from happening, it can get worse. It can get worse. And it has become an industrialized deportation effort of millions of people. And now the Supreme Court has ruled that we can deport these people to countries that they are not from, countries like South Sudan, and put them in forever prisons and never let them out. This, if any other country was doing this, would be held account by the world, the Western democratic countries of the world. But somehow, because of the United States, we're the United States still, and I don't know if people are just too afraid, other countries, or they're waiting to see how bad it's going to get. We should be held accountable. And I don't know what's going to happen when we have FIFA and the World Cup here, and we have the Olympics here. I mean,
I wouldn't.
no, absolutely not. Countries should be pulling out of both of them.
You know,
And a Canadian man died in custody of ICE. I don't know if you saw that, like the day before yesterday.
You raise an interesting point, because in 1980, we boycotted the Olympics in Moscow, the Winter Olympics, because of their invasion of Afghanistan. I don't know why other countries are not boycotting FIFA here. I understand it is sporting. I understand in some ways it's bigger than the Olympics. I understand it is just
big money,
you know, big money, and I understand that it's national pride, and they would probably get crucified by their own people if suddenly, you know, Germany or France or, you know, any of these big soccer countries suddenly said we're not sending people to the United States because of their policies. And it would create a massive diplomatic firestorm between the United States, and they probably don't think it's worth it. But the reality is that a lot of the people who are coming for FIFA are coming from South America and Central America, Africa. Or at least a lot of the players who play on the European teams are African, or they're of African descent, I should say. You know, the French team, because they were such a colonial power back in the day, has a lot of players who are of African descent. And I don't know that I would feel comfortable coming here. The players would be okay, but the fans?
I wouldn't even say the players are going to be okay. Like, I mean, when in New York City, when they are picking up tourists and detaining tourists on the corner of 34th and 8th Avenue and leaving their 12-year-old child sitting there in tears, wondering what the hell's going on, who doesn't speak English. When these things are happening and they're being on camera, this happened, about a month ago or whatever. When these things are happening in the United States, like no one is safe here. Nobody. No one is safe here because, when you have a United States senator walking into places and saying, I'm Senator Padilla, and the ICE agents just don't care and throw you to the ground and detain you, like no one is safe here.
No, you're right.
No one is safe here.
You're right. And by the way, and Michelle and I talked about this offline yesterday, and then I think we have to probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
There was speaking of Islamophobia, there was a judge from New Jersey whom Biden wanted to nominate or did nominate.
Right.
Second Circuit Court, Third Circuit, second, whatever the circuit is that covers New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And he did not make it because a few Democrats in the Senate said no. Purely based on Islamophobia.
This is where the Democrats again are.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Knowing full well that they would leave that vacancy for Trump to fill. Who's Trump filling that vacancy with? Emil Bove. His hatchet man lawyer, who's now the DOJ enforcing all of these horrible laws.
Right.
And so congratulations, Democrats.
Yeah.
Second
you sure showed us.
A Court of Appeals, a federal Court of Appeals seat, a circuit seat that should have gone to us, to the good guys. A lot of these, I think it was Jackie Rose and a few of these people who were up for re-election who didn't, God forbid, their voters would have been upset because somebody had painted this poor man as being, I don't even know what, pro-Hamas. I mean, when I tell you complete nonsense, I mean,
right, just made up shit. Yeah.
Made up shit because he happened to be Muslim.
Right.
And it was a disgrace and it was a stain, and it is a stain on their legacies. But what it does mean is that if you are bringing a case in the District Court of New Jersey, for instance, where the federal judges, because I know some of them are excellent, even if they were appointed by Republicans, all of them are excellent.
Yeah.
That case doesn't go well for MAGA, which it probably won't. They appeal to that circuit court.
Right.
Lifetime appointment, Emil Bove, who's going to do whatever Trump wants for the rest, long after Trump is gone, if he's
for
ever
the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life.
Yep.
That's the same circuit court that Marion Trump-Barry was on, by the way.
Of course. And this is again where,
whom I believe Clinton appointed to that seat, if I'm not mistaken.
What a time.
So,
and this is just another example. I mean, that's why this birthright decision yesterday is so detrimental. And it is really that I feel like the country changed yesterday in a big way. It's like the Constitution doesn't even matter anymore because Donald Trump can just write executive orders and just rewrite the Constitution, apparently. Now, they were clear that they weren't ruling on birthright citizenship, and that's coming. But like, what does this mean? Like, if you were born in America, and you became a citizen via birthright in the 14th Amendment, but then you live in Alabama, which they say that you're not a citizen there anymore. Like what? But then you go to a place like New York or California where they say they do. Like what? Then how are we even a country anymore?
Yeah.
How are we a country? It's, and let alone just women traveling state to state and not having the same rights. Then if you're a citizen via birthright in the 14th Amendment, you're not a citizen state to state.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like crazy shit.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, this person said, I live in upstate New York. You have no idea about it. I'm from Northern New York. I'm from Jefferson County. That's where I grew up. And I do know. So I'm like totally with you. And again, there's places like New York and even California too. But I know New York the best, that you go north of Westchester County and man, it's a whole nother world. So like the diversity of even just like thought and political ideology in states like New York, man, I fear, if you guys know about Ireland and the Troubles, the several decades of the Troubles and violence and things like that went on and still, I think a little bit, I don't know, maybe somebody from Ireland here knows, but for a very, very long time, the Troubles, and that I fear something like that can happen here.
Well, somebody here said, you know, we used to be the United States of America. Used to be is the operative word. When you have a Supreme Court that basically says that laws apply differently depending on which judge and which state rules.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means that I, living in New York, have one set of laws because chances are the judges that are here are going to rule one way, and judges in Texas are going to rule another. And there's no law of the land anymore. There's no United States anymore. We are basically a confederacy now.
Yeah.
Interesting enough.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
awful.
watch the Dairy Girls. Absolutely. Eileen. Yes, Dairy Girls is fantastic. But yeah, so anyways, we're getting to be about that time. We were like way over, but you know, thank you everybody for being here. We've got 7,000 people watching across platforms, and we're just so grateful that all of you are here. And you know, I'm glad that we can have healthy discussions here, that we may not always agree, but you know, I think everybody here, for the most part, except for maybe a few trolls, we're all on the same team. We all want the same things, and that's what matters the most.
And tomorrow night, what do we say, Michelle? Let's
7. Let's do it at 7.
All right,
7
so
Eastern.
PM tomorrow. If you guys have any good ideas for the name of the show, we're gonna do a little prototype tomorrow at 7 p.m. on my Substack. So if you subscribe to Salty Politics on Substack, to my Substack.
Well, I was thinking, Julie, maybe I can try to figure out how to do the back end StreamYard so we can do it on Substack and YouTube.
Oh, great idea. Okay.
Yeah. So then at least like people on YouTube can watch and stuff, like if they're watch on TV or something.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to try to do that, but just in case, try to, the easiest way for us to communicate to you guys about how this is, in addition to social media, is you'll get an email notification from Substack.
Yeah.
When we go live. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to get it. Email notification. But this is less politics, more just it's more just like dishing and like talking about our lives and how, you know, our opinions about maybe some more cultural things. So if that's something that you don't care about or you don't like, maybe the show is not for you, but we hope that it will be, because, you know, women of a certain age, we don't always get the opportunity to talk about things that matter to us. There really aren't shows, like from what you can tell, there are a lot of guy shows. There's a lot of bro shows, but there are not many shows about women talking about their stuff.
And just really quick, as far as I know, yes, she's going to.
She certainly is running for governor, and there's a good chance she might win.
Yep. So, and which is even more reason why, you know, with everything that's going on, we have to elect a Democrat. I don't care who the hell it is. But was that? Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And otherwise, people were asking, I think I saw like maybe one comment or something. The thing that I wrote about Joe Biden, it's on my Substack. I made like a post about it because I don't have like a Substacky step. It's just a post. And I also put it on my Instagram, which I'm at the Michelle Kinney. So if you want to go read that or look at it or share it or something, it's there. So that's it.
Hussein, thank you. Merci. And we'll see everybody on Wednesday at noon. If you don't want to join us tonight, although you should, at noon on Wednesday. And we will see you guys all back here next Saturday. Hopefully we'll have the whole team back together on next weekend. And hopefully the weather is going to get warmer because it's warm.
I hope so. Because this is like bumming me out.
I know.
I was at that I went to a graduation yesterday on Long Island, and it was like freezing. It was awful. I mean, I'm like, it's either going to be 100 degrees or 68. And I'm like, ugh. Anyways, it's June and you'd have no idea. But anyways,
I hear you.
Right. I know. I'm like, ugh.
I love the necklace, by the way. Is that lips?
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's for Pride.
This is from, where did I get this? I don't remember. Was it Lele Suzuki? I think. Yeah,
I love it.
I think it's, and I have the little matching earrings. So, and this is Pride, and I just want to, I can't talk. I want to wish everyone a happy and safe Pride. It is Pride in New York City this weekend. Used to be something that I did a lot when I was younger. I'd go out in Hell's Kitchen to all the places. I'd be at Therapy and Barrage and everywhere else. I am too old for that shit now. I saw we were coming back from Long Island last night. It was like 11 o'clock. And like, there were people getting on, like all dressed up. And I was like, I looked at Joe and I was like, are we going in the right direction? I was like, oh my God, they're just starting their night. Oh my God. I was like,
I have that. You know what? One of my best friends is gay. He's my age, but back in the day, We used to party it up at the same clubs.
Right. So
I
fun.
used to go with him, right? Therapy and
Yeah.
we used
The
to
Limelight. Did you go to Limelight?
Limelight. I used to go to Limelight when Limelight before was a gig, back in like the 80s. But
Right.
or the 90s. But he and I were talking about that yesterday, actually, where he's like, "Do you remember the days when I would just start to go out
Start at 11.
And I said, I can't, if I'm not asleep by 9:30 at night, my husband actually he just turns off the light at 9:30 at night. Like I could be
amazing.
Literally just turn off the light. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's
I'm like a little bit of a night owl, but not like that anymore. Like I sit up and like read or watch TV.
Oh, I read, but I have to do it in the dark because it's lights out. It's lights out.
Yeah.
It's curfew time in my house. But yes. All right, you guys.
Yeah. So I'm going to play us out with the latest Seneca video just because. Great. And we'll see everybody tomorrow at 7, hopefully, to talk about Jeff Bezos' terrible wedding. And if not, we'll see you next Wednesday at noon for some more Over It. Everyone have a safe weekend, safe and happy Pride. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We have spent more than $7 trillion in fighting wars in the Middle East. As a candidate for president, I loudly pledged a new approach. Great nations do not fight endless wars.
6 months in, and here we are, turning back on the campaign promises.
And I'm the only candidate in this race who can make this promise. I will prevent World War III. Nobody else is going to prevent it. You're going to end up in World War III.
Straight to breaking news.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
U.S. reportedly striking Iran directly.
President Trump announcing on Truth Social.
A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo.
But I'm proud to be the first president in decades who started no new wars.
And we bombed Iran.
Going to war with Iran.
Because MAGA is not for foreign wars.
Yep.
We are not for regime change.
After his officials said, no regime change. That's not what we're doing. It's about the nukes. He put out a tweet.
I want to put up a pretty interesting post from the president here, full screen. It says it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? And then he ends it with MIGA, make Iran great again.
And the reason I started No New Wars is they respected the people in this room.
And we are for America first.
And part of me was like, oh, we're not really going to do that.
We should have never gone into the Middle East.
We're entering a nuclear war, the World War III.
World War III if something doesn't happen fast. And that's going to be a world war like no others because of nuclear power and other power that's out there.
Their tune is going to drastically change the minute we start seeing flag-draped coffins on the nightly news, on Fox News that brainwashes all the baby boomers.
Thank you very much.